As I was preparing for today, and as we've been organising this whole event, it's really reinforced to me how tough the business climate is, how tough it is out there. This is a challenging world at the moment, and it places demands upon us. Some of those demands are to become different than we have been in the past. They force us to become different in the past. They ask different questions of us, sometimes questions we haven't encountered before. There are a lot of business leaders I've spoken to over the past couple of years, and particularly in the past few months, who are describing how tough and challenging it is to operate in an uncertain world, in an unpredictable world. The rules of yesterday don't necessarily apply today. Sometimes the skills of yesterday don't really apply to today. There are new demands and new ways that we have to approach it. I've heard phrases like, we have to do more with less. The target's higher, but the budget's lower. How does that work? Our people need different skills. We need different things from them. We need them to be resilient. We need our people to be mentally tough. These are new attributes that we now need in business. How do we get those? One of the answers to how we deal with all of these new challenges is to start really refining, start extending our competitive advantage. I think competitive advantage is becoming increasingly valuable in business. You're going to hear today from some speakers who have gone to extraordinary lengths to develop the tiniest of margins, to gain the tiniest of margins. Sometimes we're talking fractions of a percent, and the work that they go through to gain those fractions of a percent often is enormous. Our World Barista Champion today, James Hoffman, mentioned a book to me which is called The Red Queen, and it outlines some basic principles of evolution. It states that any advantage, any competitive advantage that you have is very temporary. Often it's lost very, very quickly. I'm going to give you an example, and join me, we're going to rewind the clock back several thousand years to the plains of Africa. We, as a group of animals, have survived and thrived because we are quicker than the other animals. Speed is our competitive advantage. So we can run fast enough to catch our prey, and we can run fast enough to avoid our predators. What we'll notice after a while is that all the slower animals die out. And after a while, we're left in a field with the other quick runners. At that point, we need to find a new point of difference. We have to find another way of separating ourselves from the crowd. Do we learn to fly? Do we learn to jump? Do we learn to swim? Do we learn to dig tunnels? How on earth do we regain that competitive advantage? If we think about that mindset, that analogy, it actually applies directly onto business. The recession has claimed some victims. You'll have seen them. Some of them were well-established businesses, some of them were household names. What you've seen is that many businesses have been through the same sort of stages. They've refined their processes, they've cut their costs, they've cut out the dead wood. They've become leaner, meaner, smarter, fitter. But actually what we notice now is that the marketplace is full of leaner, meaner, smarter, fitter businesses. So now how do we gain the next competitive advantage? Where's that next innovation? I suspect that next innovation could be what I think of as the human dimension. I was talking to Keir Worth at last year's Be World Class conference, and he was describing the way that England squash are staying ahead of the rest of the world. As an organisation, England squash have been absolutely at the forefront of the world, have been #1 in the world for about 15 to 20 years. But Keir knows that the things they've been doing to this point won't keep them ahead for the next few years. They're looking at their next innovation. And interestingly, their next innovation is not technical. It's not racket design, it's not training methods, it's not sports science, it's not performance analysis, none of those things. Their next area of innovation is to fully engage the players. The coaches know it's not good enough anymore to just teach skills or tactics or techniques. That's not going to cut it anymore. They need to fully engage the players. They need to get inside the heads of the players. They need to understand how they think, and they need to understand world-class thinking and make sure their players adopt world-class thinking. Today is a unique opportunity for all of us to explore world-class thinking. We're going to get underneath the skin. We're going to start understanding how world-class performers think, how they approach their challenges, how do they deal with setbacks, what makes them tick, how do they perceive their world. By understanding some of those things, we can actually start adopting some of that ourselves. We're in control of how we think. So we can start adopting world-class thinking.